Hey YouTube, it's the Cousin Dan again. I'm out here with the chickens and I want to show you how I automate my watering system. So this is the old one. This has started to spring a leak, and so we've got these little water cups here, and they work very well. I've had this running for about 3 years, but I'm going to rebuild it. So this is how you do it. All you're going to need is a drill with the right size drill bit, a bucket, preferably 5 gallons or more if you want it to last a while, and some of these. So here what I have is a set of 15 of these. They're not really drinking nipples, they're more like drinking cups with a valve on them. So the chicken's beak goes in and it pushes this to the side and water comes out through here. And so you drill a hole in the side of the bucket and then you put this through. The gasket right here is some kind of maybe nylon type gasket, maybe a little softer than that. And then on the inside, there's this little plastic wing nut that will hold it in place. So it's important to get this on there, otherwise it will fall out even if you thread this into the bucket. It's just there's not enough there to thread onto. So these work very well. The chickens have to train themselves to do that. It doesn't take very long for them to get trained up in using these things, in my experience. And I've done this with a few different batches of chickens. So I've had good success there. If you need to clean it out, you can pop these things off. It just opens up like that, and then you pull it out, and you can clean these pretty easily with this still in place. It's important to get the right placement on the bucket. So here you can see it's touching the bottom when it's at its point where it's perpendicular to the bucket. So you want to move it up a little bit from there so that you can set the bucket on the ground without these touching the ground. Now that said, you know, these are certainly not going to be this low to the ground. You're going to set the bucket on something. But if you need to take the bucket off and set it on the ground while you're fixing something or working on it, you don't want it to be like this and then these touch the ground first and kind of torque up like that, because then it will work it loose even if you have the wing nut on the inside, and it will just be resting the bucket and any water that's in it on the spouts themselves. So you don't want that. So set the bucket flat on a surface and go perpendicular to the bucket, touching the bottom, and then go up an inch, inch and a half, or half an inch, somewhere in that range. Keep in mind, the more you go up the side of the bucket, the more water is going to be in the bottom of the bucket that you can never use. So don't go too far. Maybe go a half inch above the flat ground. When you get that mark, take a look at it, pull out your Sharpie, and make a mark there. Then, to make it easy for the other spouts, presumably you'll want to have more than the one spout. You just take a ruler, you measure how high that is, and then go around and mark some other holes with your Sharpie before you drill the holes. Also, I wanted to mention these things here. I got them, 15 of them for about $8 to $10 online. So pretty cheap, pretty accessible. Definitely recommend this style. I've tried some other styles and it's harder to get the chickens to train on the other styles. I think because these are there, when they push it and it fills up, they can literally see the water. I think that's helpful in training them. They see the water pooling in there and they go for it. And every time they go for it, their beak pushes it. So one way to get them to train is to push this in manually and fill it up with water, and then they just start using it to get the water, and they don't realize that they're filling it, and then it trains them. Some of the other ones don't have a little cup on them, and there's just a nipple that sticks out, and they have to know that when they push their beak on that nipple, it opens up and gives them water. That's a little bit harder because they have to know something before they get the water. So now we have that. All you have to do next is take your drill, which you have aligned to make sure you have the bit that's the right size for this, and drill holes. All right, so now we have our 4 holes. And you just need to stick these inside the hole, just like that. Make sure they're somewhat clean. That one has a little bit of burring on it. Clean that up. It's not extremely sensitive, but you want to have this gasket seating decently well against that. So you stick that in there. And then we'll go on the inside. Pop this lid off here. On the inside, we can see that sticking through, so we can just put the wing nut right on it. That wing nut will just hold it in place. On the outside, we can hold that level and tighten it up just like you would any other nut and bolt. You don't want to over tighten it and gaw the threads because they are plastic threads, but you can kind of feel that it's pretty tight. I'm not sure if that's perfectly level, but you can jump the threads or gaw the threads, and that's all. That all makes it more difficult for this to work. Once you get that nice and tight, you do that on all 4 of them. You can see I have a little bit of clearance underneath, and then I'll show you how it works. I have all 4 mounted here, and on the inside I have the wing nuts. Now, I did want to say that the wing nuts that I bought with the kit were very fragile. I popped 3 of them. You can see that that's cracked. You tighten it too much, it just popped. Now, these are on plastic threads, so there's really not a lot to them, and they still broke. So 3 of them broke. Just keep that in mind. They don't handle it very well, so be gentle. Now for the lid, I'm just going to use the lid that I used from before, but I'll show you how it works. So you have a hole cut in it as an overflow hole. Then you have a typical garden hose repair end. So all it is a barb fitting that fits a garden hose, and you drill a hole in the bucket top in the lid, and you stick that through it. Then you can use any method you want, but I just have a hose clamp that I set on there, and I tighten it down. When I tighten it down, it's hard to pull the hose clamp and the hose fitting through that small hole in the bucket. When you bring it out there, you end up putting your hose in here and putting it on a timer, and I'll show you the timer. So I'm back out here. I'm picking a new spot to place this. I just put a board down, make sure it's level, and you set your bucket on there. It helps if it's level. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you take your lid and you place it on top, snap it into place. You ready, Zerg? You ready for another waterer? All right. Take your hose and thread it right on in there. It's going to be difficult to do this with one hand, so I'll hook that up and then show you the timer. So a hose timer is just this single AA powered solenoid valve, basically. Has a couple different options on it. You can set it to different times of day. Mine comes on at a particular time of day for about 30 seconds to top off the bucket. You can set it for less than that. I think the bucket will overflow within 30 seconds. But these things, this is the spring of 2023, and these things cost between $30 and $60 depending on the brand. Of course, by next year, it's probably going to be 80, and the year after that, it's going to be 120 by the looks of things. Anyway, so I have this on the splitter just so that I can also use it, use my hose spigot for other things. So I turn that one off and I leave this one on. So now, when I turn this on, it just deadheads right into here. It looks like I got a little bit of a leak, so I need to tighten that up. Anyway, it will just put pressure right to here. When this turns on, which I can hit this and manually turn it on. Oh, no, I go like this. There we go. There it is. Now it's filling up the bucket. I can then turn this off. It'll keep running until I turn it off. I think it'll run for 30 minutes. These things are really, really handy. I've had this for, I think, 3 years, and it's on the same AA battery. So they last a long time. Pretty impressive. This is a self-draining silcock, which means that it goes inside to where it's insulated. And it's on a slope, a downward slope. So when I turn this valve off, I actually turn it off in there where it's in the heated home. And it will make the seal, and then any water that's still in here just naturally falls out, and it doesn't freeze up in this pipe and crack it. If I have it on something like this, there is water from here all the way down to this valve. That's the solenoid valve inside here. So if it froze right now, it would crack anything along this pathway because there's nowhere for the water to escape or drain out. So keep that in mind. This is a summer solution. All right, ladies, sorry I'm going to interrupt you. So you can see the water filling up in here. This is why you have a hole here, because this is about to overflow here in just a moment. But I want to show you this. When you push this sideways, it just fills up. And it will keep filling up and overflowing. See, now that's overflowing. It'll overflow until you stop. So this one here is just sitting there. So I can fill this up, the chicken will drink it, and then it seals right up. So I'll go shut this hose off now. So there it is. It's working just fine. The chickens know how to use it. Of course, they've used this before. Actually, that one has not. This one is learning this for the first time. That's a new chicken, and so is that one. And it's already figured it out. And that water has only been in there for about, I don't know, a minute and a half. So pretty impressive. I really like this design. I think you will too. One way to know how long you should put your timer on is to basically leave the bucket full, turn the water off entirely, check it in a couple days, and or check it in one day and see how much water has drained out of the bucket, how much water the chickens have consumed. And then you can turn the hose on and put your stopwatch on and time how many seconds it takes to fill up that amount of water before it starts overflowing, and then set your timer to run for that long. And that way, maybe just a little bit longer. It can overflow a little bit, but that means that, you know, over time it's not gonna, the chickens aren't gonna catch up to it and have an empty bucket. But what that does is it allows you to have water full for your chickens all the time without you ever having to go carry water to your chickens and without you ever having to worry about it. Now, of course, you got to check on it to make sure all the mechanics are working right and that it's not leaking. Strongly recommend this solution. I think it's a great idea. It's worked very well for me. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to The Cousin Dan.